Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Pardon me. In the wake of the feedback I've gotten from the writers, editors, and content creators of other journals and channels, almost all in complete accord with my pronouncements, yet with a odd misinterpretation or two, I've felt it was time to explain something that, well, maybe I've been too close to, and for too long, that may be thoroughly misunderstood. And to be clear, this whole conversation was spurred by the fact that the Euphoria Room, the room that was hosted by partners the Audio Company, the Valve Amplification Company, and Von Schweikert Audio at Exponent 2022 has, as of this recording, earned yet another 7 more Best of Show awards. More on that soon enough. A recent conversation with Damon Von Schweikert, the son of loudspeaker engineering legend Albert Von Schweikert, who passed away just 2 years ago now, and the CEO of Von Schweikert Audio, spurred a long overdue realization. It finally became clear to me that I had been too close to the forest to see the trees. In essence, because I had been exposed to and had gotten the message, and therefore had come to understand what it was that his father had set out to accomplish, even before he founded Von Schweikert Research and gave the world the game-changing, for those of us who got it, original VR4, I have just taken for granted that everyone got it. I fell prey to the most common of mistakes, that of assuming that everyone else thinks and sees things as we do. Now first, let me address the obvious elephant in the room. Von Schweikert Audio has not ever, now or at any time in the past, paid me to or for endorsing or promoting their products. Now, in light of full disclosure, they do sponsor display advertising on my companion website. But let's dig into this consideration. 13 months ago, I was contacted by my good friend and colleague, Dr. David W. Robinson, editor-in-chief of Positive Feedback, who put to me the question of whether the high-end audio publication community ought to address the need for standards, practices, and ethical guidelines within our own domain. He was proposing the formation of an association of editors that would publicly subscribe to a core of guiding principles adhered to by the entire body. Now, as I speak to you today, the 8 original founding members, of which the Audio Analyst is one, we have approved and finalized the design and development for hosting the website, which will present our statement of philosophies. This site, the new home of the Association of Independent Audiophile Publications, will be live any week now. The site will outline our guiding principles, all collectively meant to deal with the ethics related to conducting business as responsible media members, reporting upon and documenting the audio industry by addressing a practice that at one time was almost non-existent in respectable journalism. That practice is known by the very descriptive title of pay to play. Sadly, this is a practice that has become more and more prevalent over recent years, to the degree that many of you merely assume that it must be the norm. Now, the standards outlined in the Association of Independent Audiophile Publications Statement of Principles directly addresses concerns such as rejecting the stipulation that you must advertise to get a review, that there may be awards, special recognition, or some placement, for example, getting a cover, in exchange for advertising or marketing contracts, or that manufacturers may buy coverage, for example, of audio shows or interviews, in exchange for paid fees and or advertising contracts. Now, it is important to understand that the AIAP is neither a regulatory group nor an ombudsman organization. It is rather a confederation of independent publications, all of whom have chosen to be members because we believe in, adhere to, and comply with the ethical guidelines outlined by our statement of principles. Now, when you get to visit the site once it goes live and see who the members are, I would ask you to take note of the names of the publications that are conspicuous by their absence. Publications that will not, or because of their practices, cannot join. I honestly think that may be even more telling than learning who has chosen to join. But I wanted to make it clear that the pay-to-play mindset has never been something I've even considered, let alone participated in. Now, getting back on topic, I'd like to explain what it was that convinced me to become a Von Schweikert owner for nearly 3 decades now, and why I've never been lured away. Guys, simply put, after spending time in front of the original VR4 in the mid-1990s, I recognized a kernel of reality that they offered, a decidedly non-hi-fi, authentic presentation that, to this day, I have yet to experience anywhere near as compellingly from any other loudspeaker manufacturer. My Von Schweikert pilgrimage began in 1995, coincident with my being recruited to manage a 3-store chain of franchised fitness facilities in Southern Maryland. I soon joined a local group of listeners who would take turns hosting the group in their audio room for listening sessions. I first heard the original Von Schweikert Research VR4s in a custom-built, dedicated listening space that was based on the golden ratio. It measured 10 feet high, 16 feet wide, and 26 feet deep. Yeah, that's a commitment. But these speakers, with a retail of just under $4,000 then, proved revelatory to me. Why? Because the VR4s didn't sound like any other hi-fi speakers from that era. With my first listen, it was clear to me that I was hearing something that was not simply different, but was considerably more reminiscent of the sound of live music. First, they had the most authentic sounding bass I'd yet heard. They were not lean, polite, or bland, like the typically unimpressive, underwhelming, wimpy bass performance offered by all the other hi-fi speakers of the day. Brands like Ariel, Goldman, Hales, Quad, Teal, Proac, or Wilson Audio. And the VR4s didn't just have more bass. It offered better transient response, pitch definition, and impact. That all fit more authentically into the broadband sonic landscape that this speaker also created. About that, here was a speaker that not only presented bass the way it sounded live, in either acoustic or electronic performances, but it somehow magically and mysteriously regenerated the space of that performance, recording permitting, of course, in a much more realistic, 3-dimensional, spacious, and corporal manner. I mean, I'd heard decent imaging and sound staging from a lot of other loudspeakers, but this presentation took a major step closer to reality. Now, since the introduction of the Von Schweikert Research VR4 Gen 2 in 1997, I have reviewed 10 different models, 9 of which I subsequently purchased, 3 of which I still own. So, what led to this unprecedented string of VSA products? What kept me coming back? While I wasn't alone in my assessment, I became addicted to what they accomplished, to how faithfully they could mimic a live performance in its space and texture. You know, I reached out to Albert Von Schweikert asking to review the VR4 Generation 2 as soon as I heard that it was to be released. Once they arrived, while I hung on to my Acoustat 2+2 medallion electrostatic panels for some time thereafter. The Gen 2s usurped their station as my reference loudspeakers in 1997. Their astonishing ESL-like purity of mid-bass and mid-range, combined with that strikingly truthful bass performance and their ability to genuinely recreate the ambience of the venue, hall, or studio where the recordings were made, simply won me over. This happened again in 2001 with the VR4 Generation 3, then again in 2002 with the release of the VR4 Generation 3 Special Editions. In 2004, the VR4JR took up residence as the front speakers in my modest theater system. In 2008, I upgraded to the VR5 Anniversaries, finished in a gorgeous cherry. In 2010, I replaced my VR4JRs in my theater with the Vortex VR33s, which are still there, and I also reviewed the slightly smaller Vortex VR22. In 2014, I upgraded my VR5 Anniversaries to the game-changing VR55 Actives, and that review graced the cover of the October 2015 issue of the Absolute Sound. Now, what would be their flagship Ultra series was the natural development from the one-off, custom-built, 6-enclosure VR111XS, built as a statement product for a long-time VSA customer, and was Albert's swan song. After its delivery and installation, Albert soon announced his retirement. In 2015, Albert's son, now CEO Damon Von Schweikert, and their current chief designer, mentored by Albert for over a decade, Leif Swanson, took the helm. And the work that VSA then began to do, building upon Albert's trailblazing and groundbreaking foundational work, epitomizes what can be done to recreate an authentic musical experience in the home. Now, I was privileged to review the second model in the Ultra series, the $225,000 Ultra 9s, for the October 2019 issue of the Absolute Sound. And guys, they had been so compelling that after the review, I ordered my own pair. Many of you may be aware that the award-winning Ultra 9s, the gorgeous red towers you see behind me, have been my reference since the spring of 2020. So why the Ultra 9 loudspeakers for my reference? In a nutshell, the Ultra 9 is the most authentically musical loudspeaker I have yet encountered. Period. Save for maybe the Ultra 11. And if you care to know more about it, please check out episode 6 where I go into it in detail. But guys, over all this time, with every upgrade, every replacement of my previous reference speakers, most recently with the Ultra 9s, the consistent and undeniable fact was that system performance continued to become more and more authentic sounding. Each new iteration or step up I took routinely chipped away at the gap between live and playback, bettering the previous model and bringing me closer and closer still to accomplishing that grand deception of convincing me that I was listening to live music. How was this continuously advancing march of musical and magical progress accomplished? Kind of simple, actually. Albert Von Schweikert first invented the unique crossovers that VSA still uses and continues to advance upon back in the late 1970s. In 1976, he moved to California to enroll in Caltech, where he spent his days studying and his nights experimenting in the lab. Under the guidance of Dr. Richard C. Heiser, the inventor of time delay spectrometry and one of the chief engineers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, he was inspired to develop new technologies rather than just follow the status quo in speaker design. Now, Dr. Heiser's TDS device permitted an entirely new acoustical measurement technique, allowing one to accurately measure phase as well as amplitude. Now, this is when Albert developed an original theory, one that suggested that a perfect speaker should be the inverse of the recording microphone. And this hypothesis was soon validated by Dr. Heiser himself. It was in 1980, after 4 years of development, that Albert published his acoustic inverse replication, or AIR, theory at Caltech, which stated that a music recording is actually an encoding of microphone voltages containing the clues of spatial dimension. Now, from that point forward, all Von Schweikert speaker designs have included a decoder with which to extract the out-of-phase ambient signals that were picked up at the rear of the recording microphone. This decoded signal was eventually fed to a rear-firing ambience retrieval system, originally accomplished by a 1-inch mid-tweeter with a variable amplitude control for room integration. This then new patent-pending AIR technology was soon complemented by the inclusion of the enhancement now known as GAIN, or Global Axis Integration Network, which took advantage of a rear-firing mid-range and treble driver complement to even more closely replicate the radiation pattern of an Omni microphone, allowing for the generation of a more uniformly spherical radiation pattern. Now, this circuit is unique and so unlike anything that you may encounter in a standard crossover design cookbook or from anything I've seen implemented by any other manufacturers. When the late crossover guru Siegfried Linkwitz was visiting with Albert in 2010, they discussed his circuit topology at some length. After considerable dialogue, including describing how this design was able to allow fourth-order acoustic roll-off of every driver, Maestro Linkwitz proclaimed that Albert had produced an entirely new form of crossover. One of the intended goals of this unique crossover technology is that each listener in the room, more or less regardless of their listening location, experiences real depth behind the speakers and is permitted to perceive a most realistic sense of the live sound field that was embedded in the original recordings. Now, this is why I say that Von Schweikert has been chasing an entirely different goal than their peers. This unique crossover and its resultant phenomenal sonic contributions to the more convincing reality generated by their speakers is, in my estimation, the single most significant and compelling attribute that has served to foster the legions of loyal VSA speaker owners over the decades. Now, due to his ongoing breakthroughs in psychoacoustics and theoretical principles of acoustic reproduction of transducers, Albert quickly became widely regarded as one of the industry's most preeminent speaker designers. As such, during this time, his expertise was sought out and contracted by companies such as Lucasfilm, THX, Walt Disney, Steinway, A&M Records, Sheffield Sound Labs, Mobile Fidelity, and JVC. Albert's work was visionary and distinctive, earning him a place as one of the true legends of the loudspeaker industry. I hope you will take the time to learn more about his groundbreaking work. I've included some links in today's description section. Yet, what I heard right from the first listen some 25 years ago was that what Albert accomplished and what Damon and Leif continue to advance upon today was a natural, more authentic sound, one completely different from all their contemporaries. These speakers have, since the 1990s, more realistically recreated the experience of a live performance in my listening space. I contend that by constantly comparing the sonic tapestry recreated by their loudspeakers to the live event rather than that of other speakers, they may have confused or lost some listeners who, like most loudspeaker manufacturers today, rely only on comparing their hi-fi speakers to other hi-fi speakers. Now, as I said, I'm not alone in my understanding and appreciation of the merits and advantages afforded by Von Schweikert audio loudspeakers. Taking note of the listings of awards at the Von Schweikert audio website, reveals that some 97 Finest or Best of Show awards from more than a dozen sources and over 71 other award accolades have been bestowed upon them. I hope you may find a way to experience their remarkable performance at a show or a dealer near you. Once you've been clued into what they accomplish, you may understand why I've chosen to bask in the unmatched delight and wonder of their distinctive and inimitable voice. Thank you for tuning in today. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and be sure to post comments or questions, and like and share links to your favorite episodes with your friends and on social media. Information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.